Hello, and welcome back to another video, in which I will be discussing The Dark Knight Rises. Before I begin the review, I'd like to state that I've been extremely unhappy with some of my recent reviews. Many of these reviews were brief, and I was dissatisfied with the end product. I'm going to attempt to go more in depth with these reviews from now on and see how it goes. So, let's get started. I'd want to start with the plot because it's the most crucial component of any film. I'll simply go through specific story elements before discussing which narrative parts I liked and why some of these plot points were problematic. Bane, a disguised terrorist and former League of Shadows member, kidnaps nuclear physicist Dr. Leonid Paval from a CIA plane flying over Uzbekistan. Batman has vanished 8 years after the death of District Attorney Harvey Dent. The Dent Act, which gave the police more authority, helped to eliminate organized crime in Gotham City. Commissioner James Gordon has kept Dent's illegal deeds following his disfigurement hidden and has placed the blame for his crimes on Batman. He has written a speech that will disclose the truth, but he chooses not to read it. Bruce Wayne is retired, and Wayne Enterprises is in financial trouble. Bane comes to Gotham and establishes himself in the city's sewers. Bane convinces Bruce's business adversary, John Daggett, to purchase Bruce's fingerprints. Cat thief Selina Kyle steals Bruce's prints from Wayne Manor for Daggett, but she is duped during the exchange and reports it to the cops. While Kyle runs, Gordon and the cops arrive and pursue Bane and Daggett's goons into the sewers. Gordon is apprehended by the henchmen and taken to Bane, who discovers the speech. Gordon flees and is apprehended by rookie GCPD officer John Blake. Blake, another orphan who discovered Bruce's secret identity, approaches him and persuades him to return as Batman. Bane assaults the Gotham Stock Exchange by impersonating Bruce in a sequence of transactions that bankrupts Bruce. Batman reappears after 8 years, intercepting Bane and his minions. Alfred Pennyworth, Bruce's butler, is dubious that Bruce is strong enough to face Bane and resigns in the hope of saving him, but only after disclosing that he burnt a note Rachel left for him, announcing her intention to marry Dent. Bruce finds solace in Miranda Tate, the new CEO of Wayne Enterprises, and the two fall in love. Bane increases his activities and murders Daggett with the stolen transactions. Kyle offers to accompany Batman to Bane, but instead leads him straight into Bane's trap. Bane confesses his intention to carry out Ra's al Ghul's quest to destroy Gotham. In a brawl, Batman is defeated by Bane, who deals a devastating blow on his back before transporting him overseas to a subterranean jail where escape is nearly impossible. The convicts inform Bruce about Ra's al Ghul's kid, who is born and reared inside the jail before escaping, the only prisoner to do so. Bruce escapes from the jail and returns to Gotham 5 months later. As Batman, he frees the cops, and they combat in the street with Bane's army. During the conflict, Batman defeats Bane. Tate steps in and stabs Batman, revealing herself to be Ra's al Ghul's daughter, Talia al Ghul. She detonates the device, but Gordon blocks her signal. Talia goes out to find the explosives as Bane prepares to murder Batman, but Kyle comes and kills Bane. Batman and Kyle chase Talia in the hopes of bringing the bomb back to the reactor room and stabilizing it. Talia's truck crashes, but before she dies, she remotely floods and destroys the reactor chamber. With no other option, Batman utilizes his airborne ship, the Bat, to transport the bomb far over the water, where it safely explodes. Batman exposes his identity to Gordon quietly before the flight. Following this, Batman is assumed dead and celebrated as a hero. Wayne Manor is turned into an orphanage, and Bruce's inheritance is given to Alfred. Gordon notices that the bat signal has been mended, while Lucius Fox discovers that Bruce has repaired the bat's failing autopilot. Alfred learns that Bruce is still alive and dating Kyle. Blake, whose real name is Robin, resigns from the GCPD and gets a package from Bruce that leads him to the Batcave. I'd like to begin with discussing Bane, as he is the major antagonist. For the most part, I rather loved Bane. He was such a fearsome villain that he was able to complete his goal of taking over Gotham. He was a good threat because he beat up Batman and really won in hand-to-hand combat. I suppose I should address the issue with Bane's character. The issue with his character is that everything we learned about him during the film was a falsehood. They added a twist by having the main villain be Ra's al Ghul's daughter, Talia al Ghul. This twist irritated me greatly, but I'll go into more detail later. We were never provided an origin narrative for Bane, nor were we informed where he gained his combat skills, and he was essentially used as a stand-in for the genuine villain. I really didn't like it because they made him appear like a helpless little kid at the end. I liked the scene where we got to watch Bane and Batman battle, and I would have liked to see Bane be the villain and truly inflict some major damage. In the end, I thought he was a terrific character who was pushed aside at the end when he really shouldn't have been, and I would have preferred him to be the villain. In this film, Batman had an excellent plot. It was quite similar to Batman Begins. Because Batman is plainly not as strong as he once was, Batman was able to simply take him out and place him in a jail in the middle of nowhere. I believe Batman goes through an excellent hero's journey in this film, since he begins the film being able to fight despite being injured, is defeated by the major villain, and then works himself back up to peak performance in order to defeat the main villain. I love how we get to witness Batman get beaten down and then rise back up and fight again through sheer persistence. This only goes to demonstrate how resilient Batman is to hardship and how he always manages to get back up. So we get yet another version of Catwoman. I thought she was quite excellent, but she'll never top the original Catwoman. I believe that Catwoman had a greater influence than simply being a romantic interest. She was originally working for Bane in order to get some money and get out of the city. In the end, she recognized that Bane was a dreadful human being, and that she wanted to do good. And she saved Batman and did an excellent job. We meet a new character named John Blake, who is a rookie police officer who ultimately becomes a detective. He was a terrific addition to the roster of characters in my opinion. In this film, he seems to portray a Jim Gordon type figure. Despite the fact that Jim Gordon was still in this one, he had a significant effect on the tale in terms of determining who Batman was, and assisting Batman in returning and saving the city by the conclusion of the film. I think he and Batman had amazing chemistry throughout the narrative, and I believed he would have been an excellent Robin. I find that amusing since, at the very end of the film, they clarify that he is, in fact, Robin. I'm unhappy that we didn't get to see Robin in the Christopher Nolan Batman films. I believe the actor would have been an excellent pick to portray Robin, but we never got to see it happen. That's all I have to say about the film's primary characters. I know we had other characters like Jim Gordon and Talia al Ghul, but they didn't have much to do in this film. For Jim Gordon, it was largely instructions and being in the hospital, but that was about it. Talia al Ghul only appeared as a villain in the shadows, since we weren't even aware she was the enemy until the last 20 minutes of the film. This may sound strange, but I enjoyed witnessing Batman get beaten. I say this because while we watch him fail in the first and second movies, it is not as severely as we see him fail in this one. We don't normally see our heroes fail this horribly, but I appreciated it in this movie since it demonstrated that Batman is only a guy in a suit. Another reason I enjoy the story element is because it shows us to view Batman's journey as more than simply a man in a suit. We witnessed how tough Bruce Wayne is without any of his gadgets or suits of armor. We got to watch him suffer, we got to see him get battered, and simply see him rise again was so wonderful after such a dreadful decline. I also like how the plot seemed to take precedence over the action. Don't get me wrong, I love the two past films, but they seemed to have more action than anything else. I loved how we received more story from Batman and John. We see Bruce yearning for a life mate, and that he no longer wants to be Batman, and is merely there to defend the citizens of Gotham. We finally see Batman retire with Selina Kyle, which I thought was a great finale. I admire that Bruce finally found a life mate and was able to relax. I also enjoy the fact that they don't appear to abandon Gotham. The fact that it was hinted at the end that Robin would be the new Caped Crusader was incredibly exciting, but it's too bad we never got to see that happen. So there's one obvious flaw in this film, and I did not enjoy it. I'm sure that many individuals certainly enjoyed it, but I am not one of them. I didn't enjoy the ending shock in which the major villain was revealed to be Talia al Ghul rather than Bane. I don't get why they had to do this, since they could have simply made her the primary villain from the start of the film, because that would have been a more creative take on a villain than utilizing Bane. I accept that Bane was a well-written character, but pushing him aside at the conclusion of the film and having him die in such a foolish way irritates me. We had such a build-up for Bane's persona, and the fact that he beat up Batman was such a significant point in this trilogy, that just having him get blown up by the Batbike felt weak. I may seem harsh, but I believe they just inserted Bane into this movie to sell tickets, because who wouldn't want to see a fresh take on Bane? It's sort of weird to think about since the reasons for Talia's actions are extremely compelling, and the plot might have been very successfully done if she had been the major villain from the start. They could have still had Bane in the film, but it's essentially the same character, rather than having us know from the start that he was merely a pawn. So how would I rate The Dark Knight Rises in the end? It's quite great that we got to watch Bane and Batman battle in live action again. We also got to witness a new Catwoman, and I must say that Anne Hathaway's Catwoman was a wonderful decision in my opinion. She wasn't the finest Catwoman ever recorded on film, but she did a very good job. I also enjoy how we are introduced to John Blake. He performed an excellent job both assisting Batman and convincing him to return. I particularly enjoy the final element in which it is implied that he will be Robin. So how would I rate this film? I'd give it a 9 out of 10. The movie was fantastic overall, but I had to deduct a point for that dreadful twist at the end, since her being the primary villain would have been much better with Bane as her bodyguard. That concludes my review of Christopher Nolan's Batman trilogy, and I must say that this is the finest Batman trilogy we've ever had. It's terrible that they weren't able to create any more films, but with Matt Reeves as the director for the next several Batman films, we should have another fantastic trilogy. I'll begin the DC universe with Wonder Woman next week. Thank you for sticking around, and I'll see you in the next review.